Good evening and welcome to the Arundel Camera Club meeting for Thursday, May 15th. My name is John Melniker and I'm club president for the 2024-2025 season. The Arundel Camera Club was founded in 1957 and exists to promote the art, science, and education in all aspects and fields of photography. For more information about us, please visit www.arundelcameraclub.org. And as we always say, whether you're watching us live or catching a recorded session, we'd love to invite you to join us in person if you are in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. We meet every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. at the Severna Park Baptist Church in Severna Park, Maryland. Before we move to tonight's program, do we have any announcements from officers? I think we have a bunch of announcements. Do we have a microphone, Christine? Can you give that to Ed for me? I'm going to turn up his volume.
It was recommended that we change the agenda because the Lotus and Lily Festival at Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens is going to be in July, and that's sort of the peak season. So I picked this date because that's when we're going to have a festival, so it'll really be nice. So. And then we have the Naval Academy. And where do we park?
Parking is, you can't go in the Naval Academy for those in there. You have to park on the street. Or you can go over off Brown Boulevard to Charles Street.
When it's done, you got to take this and go right. The opposite direction you want to go, okay? The opposite direction. Go right to go left.
So we need to replace the June meeting, and it just turns out that the butterflies are back. The butterflies are back. So I picked this date because you can actually go for an hour and a half for $45, or you can just go for a shorter time for $14.
Calvert Street Garage.
Huh?
It's Calvert Street Garage, I'm sorry.
Calvert Street Garage. So anyway, that's going to be really nice, the books I got. Now, do you have something to announce?
Just on the butterflies, just to say that I've talked to people who have been over there. Some of the bigger butterflies are, I won't say are beat out, but they're not perfect because they're in contained areas. And they are pretty strict about the amount of time that you have there. And it's also possible to register a couple days ahead of time and pay the money online. And then you have to arrive about 15 or 20 minutes before your butterfly time. So they're assuming that they'll move on this particular day. It may not be bad, you don't know, but it's always good to plan ahead, allow extra time.
Thank you. Okay, that's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Ed. I appreciate it as always. Okay, let's see if we can get recentered back here with Christine.
You're peeking in the side.
Do you know how to move it?
It's moving, it's just...
Oh, it's slow. Let's just pick it up and move it. There we go. I think that should work. Okay, nothing but the highest level of professionalism tonight. Okay, any other announcements?
Just to... Sorry about that.
No problem.
Just a couple quick things. I forgot to bring the pictures tonight, and I don't see anybody here offhand whose pictures I have at my house. If you really want your pictures today, follow me home, and I'll hand them to you when we get there. Otherwise, I can bring them back next week. And did you all get the email that I sent out a few days ago that had links to the information about the Blue Angels and the butterfly exhibit and stuff like that? If it was big, so it might have got dumped someplace. But if you find that, I tried to tag in some things that you might need to have for the next few days to support these events and such.
Anything with MPA?
Pardon me?
Anything MPA related?
MPA, no. We're no, nothing right now. Sorry to say.
Wow.
They announced the themes, and that's in my email. Right. Yes, thanks for bringing that up. And I know people, I've talked to people already who are getting little folders together in their Lightroom for the different topics so they can pick out the best of the best. And if you want to know about how to win that, just talk to Bob and he'll tell you how you get a winning entry.
Murder some hard drives, right? Is that how it works, Bob? Any other announcements before we move on tonight? Okay, well, our auditing committee met today. I'm hoping everything went well, so we're going to find out about that next week. And next week, as I said before, that's a very important meeting. We need a quorum of 2/3 people to pass a couple things that we like to talk about, especially the separation of the secretary and treasurer roles, which we brought up, and then Jackie also sent an email out. So we'd like to vote on that. That way we can make sure that our year and our future goes ahead very smoothly. And do we have anything else? The banquet's in 2 weeks. A lot of people have donated some fantastic books and items, so I want to thank everybody for doing that. That helps out tremendously. And I think that's it. Somebody told me in the parking lot I had to say something. Speak now or forever hold your peace? No? Okay, maybe I just hallucinated it. Christine, you want to come up and talk about the calendar for the rest of the year?
I'm basically going to summarize everything John just told you, but on Saturday, on May 17th, we have our field trip to the U.S. Naval Academy that Ed just told you about. And then next week is our business meeting. Just a reminder, that will not be streamed to Facebook. Please be present or tune in via Zoom. We need as many people as possible that are paid members to participate in that. That is where your input for next year is heard. There'll be reports from Ron, me, everyone who, the finance committee, and summarize, and we vote in officers for next year. And this is where we finalize everything for next year. So please, please, please join us.
Just a quick question. So if I'm at home on Zoom, can I be in a meeting and be counted part of the votes and quorum?
Yes. If you're at home and you're on Zoom, you will be counted as part of the quorum and that you're present. But we ask you to please turn off your audio, your microphone at home unless you're talking to the group. That way it doesn't disturb everyone. But yes, if you are on Zoom, you will count. So please join in via Zoom or in person next week.
We don't do proxy votes.
And we don't do proxy votes, so you can't say, this is what I vote for beforehand, or call someone and say, hey, vote this for me. We can't do that. So you either have to be in Zoom or here in person for your vote to count. And then our end of year banquet is on the 29th. And that is the rest of this year. And then we'll start working on next year, and we will see you in September.
Perfect. I forgot to mention one thing. I sent an email out to the club. There is an event on Saturday that Fred helped us out with last year. I'd like to find somebody else that can help us out. And I didn't write down it. It's a mental health, I guess, charity or fundraiser. They're having an event. So it's a nonprofit. They're looking for a photographer. Just take some snapshots around some groups. I think that they're feeding you an extravagant dinner. Mr. Delp was going to come down and chat with us in person, but looks like he's running a little bit late. But that's that. If you're interested, they're really desperately looking for somebody. You don't need to be a professional photographer. They're happy with what you get.
What
So
time of day is it?
I think it's starting at 7 p.m. in Annapolis. But check that email for that. And I think that's it for me. Okay.
For tonight, we have a program by Les Picker, and I'm sorry it's not on travel photography. He is talking about printing your photographs. So I will turn it over to Les, and I just have a quick question for you, Les. Are you there?
I am.
Do you want interrupted with questions as we go, or do you want to hold everything till the end?
No, I'm pretty informal, so if people have questions, just shoot them at me. And if I'm going to cover that issue that someone brings up later in my talk, then I'll just tell them that. excuse me, and we'll move on. But otherwise, I welcome questions or comments.
Sometimes we fall a little behind on Facebook, so it may be a slide behind for questions if someone asks there. I'll just warn you now.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Go
Well,
ahead and start.
Shall we get started?
Yes.
Do I
Yes.
So is wide print on the screen right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. So we're going to talk about printing. I have to tell you right in advance that this is not a technical session. We teach for the last 20 years. We've been teaching fine art printing workshops in our studio here. And my associate, who's been with me for 19 of those years, is a master printer, Bob Boyers. And so he handles a lot of the technical issues. We have 4 large format Canon printers here, 17-inch, 24-inch, and 44-inch, to accommodate all sorts of things. Now, what I would like to start with, if I actually can, I'm going to change the screen up for a moment. And we have, in conjunction with Moab Fine Art Papers, we have produced a book it's 163 pages on digital printing, fine art. It's called the Fine Art Print ebook, and it is totally free to you. So take advantage. There are 30,000 people have so far downloaded it, but you can take advantage of it. And if you haven't already, so if you go to fineartprintebook.com, you can download that book, and I will repeat that website in just at the end of my talk. You'll see this when you go to that site. You're going to see this screen, which is simply put in your email address, and it will be sent to you as a digital book. It's full color, and it explains everything. Here's one beginning of one chapter on the develop module in Lightroom. In addition, on that site where you download, don't just go away, explore that site, because on that site, we actually have case studies, which will help you if you run into some common problems. We walk you through how to solve those problems. So these case studies are, we understand from our readers, is really quite valuable and helpful. Okay, so let's talk about why print. And I'm going to throw a curveball on this, because I'm going to actually start with why not print. Printing isn't for everyone. We happen to love prints here in our studio. Bob and I have a long history with it. I used to be a National Geographic photographer, and I just love quality prints. But prints are a different medium than digital. So we need to understand that as we move forward, and I'll get into that in more detail as we go along. First of all, printing can be, when you get into printing, it's costly. The printers actually are a miracle in a way, because they actually don't make much money on the printers. What they really make money on is selling you the inks and the paper. And if there's one thing I can recommend to you, it's never, ever use an off-brand ink for your printer. If you're using an Epson printer, use the inks that Epson supplies. And if you're using Canon, use the inks that Canon supplies. If you don't, you're asking for trouble, number one. And number two is, if you have a service problem, it's not covered under the warranty. They know for sure if you've used a competitor or a off-brand, let's put it that way. We've tested off-brands, and they on an old printer that we had, and the results are absolutely terrible. The colors, you just cannot get them balanced. So just take that as a warning, if you will. Also, if another reason to really consider whether you want to get into printing, if you're not already a printer, is it does take time. There's a steep learning curve and it requires a lot of patience to get through. But practice, practice, practice. That's the key thing with printing. It's like anything else. If you're in golfing, you have to practice your stroke. If you're printing, you've got to make an investment in paper and ink and get through that first 6 months or so of printing. And then another reason that you may not want to print is that commercial labs are pretty decent nowadays, but not perfect. And that is, if you're looking for really quality prints and printing large, you can do that for a fraction of the price with learning how to print yourself and having a decent printer. So why print? The key thing here is that printing started actually in the very late 1700s. The photography, I should say, with not what we would call cameras today, but in 1798 there were prints done in France, and throughout history of photography, you can go to Matthew Brady in the Civil War. It's been really the universal yardstick by which one's photography is measured. It's only with the advent of the internet that digital photography has really taken the lead. And there are a lot of younger photographers who come into this that have no idea of the value and the beauty of a photographic print. It does extend your art. It's part of our culture, and it really is a tangible, elevated form of our art. We think of it as a reverential experience here at our studio. And if you look at it, think of it this way. Microsoft did a study way back about 20 years ago of how long people spend looking at a photo when let's say you hand someone your iPhone and you say, oh, I was just in Yellowstone, take a look at my shots. The average was 2.3 seconds. Now, today, just 20 some odd years later, it is 1.9 seconds spent on looking at a series of photos on a person's iPhone or smartphone. Whereas when you go to a gallery, it is such a different feel that you have. I was at Dorothea Lange's exhibit at the National Gallery. I hope several of you went there to see it. It was amazing how long people stayed in front of those wonderful prints of Dorothea Lange's. As far as connection goes, prints more than digital looking on an iPhone really do grab the viewer and give it a very deeper connection. We're talking about people spending minutes. I was at the Phillips Gallery, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and with a client of mine who's also a dear friend, and we spent literally 10 minutes in front of one photo. I photographed it several ways to avoid glare in it, but on my iPhone shot of it. But it was so stunning, a black and white image with a full range of black to white. It was just beautifully done in 1840. So it really does give a much deeper connection. Black and white prints I want to talk about just for a moment, because in the late 70s, a university psychology department, keep that in mind, it was not the photography department, the psychology department wanted to test how people viewed color images in black and white. They just wanted to see how much time they spent, et cetera, what they were looking at. So they opened up a gallery off campus that was visited by 16-year-olds up to, I think the oldest attendee was in his 80s. But this was open for a couple of months. A camera was located above every image, and there was an equal number of black and white and color, and their subject matter was basically the same. And what they found was that people spent 3 times as much time on the black and white images as they did on the color images. Now, you might ask why, and they explored this and they came up with a wonderful explanation for it. We are exposed to over 100,000 color images every day. Every time you turn from looking in one place and you turn 30 degrees the next place, you're seeing a whole different scene. We get about 100,000 or more of those every day. With black and white, they found that people had to go through three psychological maneuvers, we'll call them. The first was, since they were looking at black and white, they had to actually decode it to understand what they were looking at. It's not conscious, it's an unconscious process, but there is a certain amount of decoding that happens. The second thing is, as you decode and finally make sense of the image or understand its context, since it's not in color, it creates what's called involvement. You feel involved with that image more. And then finally, that leads to what is known as, in psychological terms, as ownership. Of course, we as photographers hope that people buy it and they become owners, but that is not the way this is phrased. This is ownership in a psychological sense. So I thought I'd mention that because it's kind of an interesting study. And here's how we believe photographs should be experienced. This is from a gallery exhibition that I had a couple of years ago. So people taking their time, really studying the images and trying to understand better what it is that they're looking at. Another thing is that prints do have permanence. You know, when you post something on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, it doesn't last long. It's gone after a day or two. People just want to, we've gotten an addiction, if you will, to contrast. We have an addiction to things that pop out of the screen. And that's fine. If that's your modality, that you want your photographs, your images to be shown, that's wonderful. But the thing is, prints are different. People take time with them and they're archival. So when you give them as a gift, let's say, or you sell one, with today's prints, with the archival inks and archival papers and archival glues, this is really a long-lived image, the print, that is. The other thing we believe is that it does elevate your art. But here's the key thing to it, and this is so important. You have to adjust your mindset. Digital and prints, totally different modalities. Think about this, a screen, a modern day monitor is blasting light through that monitor at a 1200, sometimes even a 1500 to 1 ratio. That is incredible, especially with the LEDs that we have nowadays. A print on a wall is only 100. The contrast ratio is only 100, not 1200 to 1500. So it's really a totally different modality, and one has to adjust one's expectations, that one has to understand it from its beauty from a different perspective. So I just want to make that point, that prints are not digital. I mean, we make digital prints, but the point is that a print is different on the wall than it is on a screen, on a monitor. Now, the question is, does it make you a better photographer? And further, not just a photographer, but a true artist. And I have come to believe this, that it does. Every time I'm out photographing, I think, is this going to make a good print? And if it doesn't, I just move on. There's no point in my taking it, unless, let's say, I'm doing a digital presentation about a trip I took or a certain place when I used to do travel photography for Geographic and others. It slows you down as a result and makes you make wiser, I feel, at least wiser choices. And it is a more mindful process. If you are a serious photographic printer, that does enter into your thinking, your decision making when you're out actually in the field. Questions, by the way?
I'm sorry?
He asked for questions.
Oh, no questions so far. I just
Okay.
have a quick question on myself. There's a maroon box in the top corner of the presentation that,
Yeah, no,
is that
I
on?
got to be distracted by that, so I'm waiting for you to interrupt me if you have a question.
Okay, yeah.
Is that all right?
No-
Okay, but if he clicks on that maroon box in the top right-hand corner, can he hide it?
I'm not certain what, are you asking me to do something here?
Yeah, is there
Yeah.
any way you can hide that maroon box? I think it's on your screen because you're on an iPhone, so what it's doing, it's trying to keep a video of us on your screen, but the problem is it's blocking a little bit of the top right corner of your presentation. So I'm wondering if we can... Well, that's his view. When he goes to share, it's probably going to do it again. So let's have
Okay,
you
but-
share. Let's have you share. We lost the share of your screen. Let's have you share again.
I know, and I'm trying to get back to it. Let me just get here. Share. Okay. And
Well, we were going crazy. I was going crazy over here trying to get rid of that darn box, but I think it's an iPhone feature where
no,
as
it's
you
on the
present.
iPad.
Well, it's an Apple feature that as you present, you can still see the other person. So I think it's a feature that I'm not sure if we could turn off or not, but we could try.
Okay. Let me just see if I can get back here to this. Hang on a second. Whoops.
Now, one thing you could do from there, the maroon box, there's a plus and a minus. If you hit that minus on the top right of the maroon, there you go, perfect.
Okay.
Now we just need to move over to your presentation, and we should be back in business.
All right. I'm not sure where it disappeared, but let me see. Here it is. Okay, we're back. Can you see it?
Yeah, we're good, but that maroon box, I think it's an Apple feature that maybe we can't turn off. So sorry for the interruption, but we'll move on from here.
Okay, let me just go back to here. Okay, so the question is, what is the story you're trying to tell? And there are many photographs that you can tell. With one photograph, you can tell the story that you're trying to tell. As long as the image isn't too crowded, this is a big, it's a big thing even in digital, but in print, when you go to print, don't forget you're not looking at something on the back of your screen. You're looking at a much larger, something larger, even if it's an 8.5 by 11. But if you go to 13 by 19, 17 by 22, with that kind of magnification, a lot of the distractions a lot of the complexity in an image will distract from the image, but you can tell a story in a single image, especially if you're doing minimalism. That then, of course, you can get your point across in a single image. But there are times when the story you wish to tell, maybe it's the plight that elephants are facing in Zambia, or it may be any topic at all that you might want to show in more detail and more facets of it, then you photograph and print for exhibitions or portfolios. I'm going to be talking about that somewhat later, about portfolios. But whatever you do, the point is here, there may be themes, and there are times that you've been photographing a project for many years. It could be winter scenes of trees. It could be a changing tree over several seasons. If you do that, then those are what we call print projects, but they do tell stories. So whichever way you decide to go, you should tell that story. And the best way I can think of this is Dorothea Lange. I go back to her because she is definitely my favorite photographer of that era. But I have to tell you a funny story about that. I was in college in the 60s, and I was working part-time to support myself through college, and managed to save. I saw an ad for an auction in New York City for, amongst other things, Dorothea Lange's picture that you see in the middle of your screen here, her famous shot of these children. And you have to keep in mind, guys, if you and I were photographing that, we would have told those kids to face forward and smile or something. But she captured that moment just perfectly. And by the way, I acknowledge there's controversy about that picture, but I'm not going to get into that now. I think they're just distractions. But the key thing is, I went to this auction having saved $300 in 1960. What was it? 67. That was a lot of money, and I thought, I'm going to bid on this at the auction. And I walked in there, got my number, sat down, and the guy hits his gavel on the desk, and he says, "Opening bid, $50,000." And I had to laugh. I sunk down in my seat. It was a signed print from her. So at any event, but here's a woman who's able to tell a story in one image. The one on the left is another of my favorites, where people are lined up during the Depression for whatever meal the government could provide. And this gentleman is facing the other way with his empty cup there, waiting to get into the soup kitchen. So yeah, you can tell the story in one picture for sure, but it often takes more. So does printing improve your visualization? We do think so. Chris, you're going to say, as you're out photographing, how does will this render on paper at all well? Where I'm not seeing, my camera's able to capture enormous range of tonalities, etc. But how is it going to look on the paper? And which paper should I use? We live in a world today where we've never before has there been a choice of papers like there are today. An example is Moab Paper. They sponsor our studio. They're one of the sponsors of our studio. They're a division of Legion Paper, and Legion Paper still sells the exact same paper that a mill in Italy made for Leonardo da Vinci. So it's made the same exact way. That it's like $50 a sheet, but it's beyond most of us. And it's not for photographic printing; it's for artists, for fine artists. So, but we have so many different quality companies that are putting out wonderful papers: Moab, Hahnemühle, Canson, so many really good paper companies with the widest range of papers that the world has ever seen. We're also sponsored by Origami in Japan, a Japanese paper company, and it's an entirely different ballgame. Japanese papers are completely, it's really not part of the typical, say, the kinds of papers that Western photographers use. So if you intend to print, but the scene isn't right, I really mean this, just say no. I often lead trips, photographic trips, different places around the world. And there are times when people stop to take a photograph, which is great. They like the scene, they want it. But what I'm looking for is, will it make a great print? And if not, then I just walk a few hundred feet down the road and see if there's something there that would better meet that criteria. Now, this is very important because it affects all of your photographic work. Self-editing is, I was talking to Tony Sweet about this several years ago. Self-editing is probably the toughest part of photographers' workflow. What's good? Which one should I use? Which of these images? I took 40 of them in the same area, which one? So self-editing is very important, but it is most challenging of all. But it does, if you're going to print, if you're looking to print, it does help you to color your images, because you'll know if something's out of focus, for example, even if it's a little bit, once you enlarge it to, let's say, a 17 by 22 or 20 by 30, it'll look horrible. So it helps you to cull out images that are not going to work, and in a way that makes your self-editing actually easier. Obviously, it's going to fine-tune your editorial eye, but going on to the next topic, because there's so much that we can talk about with printing. Obviously, you can decorate with them. Today's display options really are incredible. You can print on wood. You can have glass prints. You can have so many ways that you can, or face-mounted plexiglass. There are so many ways that you can decorate with your prints. So really, we're in a new world of creativity with printing. People often ask us about what paper should I use. I talked about how many there are papers there are. Baryta papers and matte papers and glossy papers. But the thing that we recommend is that if you're just starting in printing, or even if you're into printing already, pick 2 papers and make that your baseline, because for several reasons. One is you should have a matte paper and then a semi-gloss, or what is we call today a Baryta paper. And the reason for that is not just to get practice with it and to really understand how a particular image will work on a matte paper versus a semi-gloss. It also will allow you to become comfortable with specific images that you have printed, so that you'll know when you're going to a different paper, or you'll be able to tell whether the problem is with the paper choice or with the ACC profile that you have to download in order to match it to that particular paper. By having 2 baseline papers and really using them a lot, and getting used to their peculiarities, if you will, that really will help. So that's something that we recommend. Another thing is that today we have many very nice textured papers, and texture does matter in printing. There are times when a texture gives a more painterly feel to an image, and that may be something that you're looking to have in that image. Then texture does matter, and once you're familiar with your baseline matte paper, go try a textured matte paper and see what you think of an image that you're used to printing. See how it looks on a textured paper. It can make a real difference. And then finally, you have to consider Dmax. If you're not familiar with that, that is the ability of a paper to render blacks as black. There's nothing as frustrating as having a beautifully toned image that reflects a lot of deep tonality, deep blacks and nice whites, and then finding when you print it that the blacks look kind of muddy, a little bit brownish instead of black. So you should experiment with papers and make sure that you have ones that either will reproduce more of a sepia feel, because you don't want deep blacks. But if you do want deep blacks in your shadows, then consider the Dmax, of the ability of the paper to have good Dmax and overall contrast. And like I said before, experiment. That's what this game is about. Practice, 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 and experiment with different papers until you feel comfortable. So, in essence, what we're talking about is making physical art instead of art that lives on your iPhone or on your monitor, but please present it beautifully. We particularly feel here, after experimenting so much and exhibiting in different galleries, etc., that don't avoid the tendency to use very ornate frames. Your photographs do best on either plain black or maybe a silver frame if with the right kind of a photograph. But try to mute the frame so that people can focus their eye on the image itself, which is part of this whole process. So in terms of displaying, we're sort of nearing the end here, is traditional frame prints. We all know what they are. They have glass in front or plexiglass in front, and that's it, your traditional frame prints. But there are also gator board mounts. Don't throw that away, that idea away, because gator board doesn't bend like foam board, and it can last a good long time. You can either dry mount it, you can use glues, different kinds of adhesives with it, acid-free adhesives. And a gator board mount, as long as you, well, it would be helpful if you have a border around it, actually does very well in shows, like if you're going to put on a show for your local library, a gallery exhibition for your local library, or your church or synagogue or whatever. You can use gator board very effectively, not foam board, but gator board. Then there are things called open frame prints. This is an image I took of a Kalahari lion in South Africa. That print is 50 by 50, framed, 50 by 50. It's printed on, it looks like it's oblong. It's not a rectangle. It's actually square. It's just where I shot it from made it look that way. But that's printed on 44-inch paper with 2-inch margins. So it's 40 inches. The print is 40 by 40. And then with the frame and so on, there's no mat. That is just the border. And there's no glazing on it whatsoever. It's an open frame print. Now you ask, how do you protect it? Well, you can use we only recommend 3 sprays that you can use that work. Be careful of knockoff sprays. They can actually ruin your print. So be real careful. Use only name brands that are quality control. And that gives it some protection, but not like being behind glass. Being behind glass, especially museum glass, is the way to go if you want a better, I should say, UV protection. But if you have a print that's hanging in sunlight, nothing's going to help it from fading. Even behind museum glass, you have to be careful of how you represent it. This is another example of a open frame. This is a African elephant that I photographed. I forget quite where it was, but at any event, there are aluminum prints, as you all know. You see them a lot nowadays because they're so contrasty. People like that wow moment when people see so much contrast in an image. There is a company that can actually print on glass. It's not a print behind glass. They print on the glass, and it's a very interesting new development, relatively new development. As I mentioned, there's face-mounted plexiglass. Then there are also portfolios. You have to understand that portfolios can be one of the most critical things that you've done in your photographic career, especially if you're a pro photographer. If you're looking to get a magazine assignment, if you're looking to get a solo exhibition, if you're looking to have a book contract, portfolios are critically important. I'm going to be talking about that a little bit more here. And another thing is wallpapers. You can print, there is there is print receptive wallpapers available. I'm going to show you a picture of one in just a second here. This is just in our studio getting ready. We do our own matting, our own printing, our own matting, and we make I make our own frames most of the time, unless there's a large exhibition going on. With 30 or 40 images, then I outsource that. Just showing in the studio how we make sure that the print is centered on a backdrop, especially if it's open frame. Here's an example of a kind of a different way of presenting. This is an image 8.5 by 11 on Unrio, Awagami's Unrio paper, which has embedded fibers, mulberry fibers in the paper. It's an amazing paper. So this is how it looks after it's completed. Once that stack is completed, it's the print is adhered to a back with a little bit of the back of that showing, 3/8 of an inch, and then another piece of mat board behind it, and then both of those, or all three of those, are adhered to a 1/2 inch piece of gator board that is about the size of of the print. It's not the whole print, but of the image of the print behind it, and then that is adhered to a backing board. So this is an open frame with using a Japanese paper, and it gives quite a nice representation in homes or offices.
Hey, Les.
Yes.
Can you go back one? I have a question about that sandwich you have there. Can you go back one slide?
Sure. Hang on, I've got to get back. Where is it here?
Sorry, number 24.
There it is. Got it.
One more forward.
One more forward. Okay.
That one there, is that a shadow on the black, or do you have a little bit more of a weighted? If you look at the image on our screen, it looks like the middle black ring is a little bit thicker on the bottom. Is that a style that you use, or is that just probably the shadow, right?
Well, we do. It depends upon the image, but we do bottom weight typically by 1/8 of an inch more. So in other words, we have a 1/4 inch margin all around. On the top and the sides, I'll use a 3/8 on the bottom.
I like it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So here's an example of a portfolio. Every year we do a portfolio workshop. We limit it to 4 people, which you'll see in a moment, the details of it. But these portfolio boxes are handmade in the USA. They're wood, not fiberboard. And in it, our portfolio workshop starts actually 2 months before the participants arrive in our studio. It's a 3-day workshop, and you go home with a finished, completed portfolio. From that portfolio workshop, our clients have, number 1, gotten their first magazine assignment. Number 2, have gotten numerous exhibitions, including several solo exhibitions in New York City even. And then one of our clients, Lou Rothman, Dr. Lou Rothman, has gotten 2 book contracts from his portfolio workshop. So this is sort of an example of, this is actually, I photograph a lot in Canada. I've been given the Canada Northern Lights Award and so on, but this is, so these are just some scenes from Canada in a portfolio that I did. Okay. And this is one of Lou Rothman's portfolios. He's a New York City photographer, and he has spent 60 years photographing in New York and has an incredible imagery that really blows you away. And he's, with this portfolio, he's able to land gallery shows and so on. This is one of the rooms in our studio. we had this wall custom built into a curve. Remember I said wallpaper? This wallpaper was printed here in our studio, and it is actually 45 images, 3 rows of 15 each of a scene in Iceland. But it forms a nice backdrop. And the good thing about the wallpaper is that it can be coated with a substance that oh God, what's the name? The company that does that. Anyway, they make a liquid that we coat the paper with, and it's been used in hospitals, kids' rooms with crayons. You just take Windex and wipe it right off. It's really an incredible way to show your imagery. For those of you that have grandkids, you can do a whole wall of an animal that they like, and so on. It's very inexpensive to do, but it takes time. And so this is an example. It's 25 feet by 10 feet, by actually 9.5 feet.
How much would something like that cost?
How much would it cost for you to make, or what we charge? Two different.
For like a wallpaper, I guess either or both.
Well, the wallpaper is fairly. We buy it in a roll because they were all printed on our 44-inch printer here, and it's the rolls are not that expensive. I can't tell you the exact price right now, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like $150 or so for an entire roll. They come coated. I mean, you're printing on it's not paper, it's vinyl. It's actually vinyl, but it's inkjet receptive. That's the key thing. You can't just use any kind of paper. So it's inkjet receptive. We've had that on this wall for 10 years, I would say now. And there's no degradation except when some of our clients have rammed a chair into it or something like that. But it's it's really a very good way to print, exhibit your work, but it's large. So you have to make sure that you have critical focus in your image, if that's what you're looking to portray. If you're looking for more abstract, then sure, go ahead and do it on that. All right. We're going to get to question and answers in just a minute, but I'd be remiss to not just tell you about what we do offer here. And that is, we teach 3 times a year. We teach fine art printing here. Only 4 people. It's full day. It starts at 8:30 in the morning and 5 o'clock, sometimes a little bit later, if someone's right in the middle of churning out a print. We try to get you printing ASAP. So we have a little bit of intro, then you have to hook into our computer network here, and it's really, you can take a look at the reviews. Bob does a wonderful job with helping people, and as I do, with post-processing and understanding why they're not getting a good print and how to rectify that. And we work one-on-one. Bob, we each take 2 people, and then we switch halfway through, so people get a lot of different input, and it's as many prints as you can print. If you want, if some people end up leaving with 3 or 4 prints, others leave with half a dozen or more. So it really depends upon what your goals are. We also have a control print viewing booth. I'm going to show that to you once I go to camera here. And I want to show you another way to display a work that I haven't talked about, but it's something we just put up on our wall about 2 months ago, I would say. So we do this, and Moab sponsors that, so we use their papers for that fine art printing. And they give you a sample pack also for that. We also offer this portfolio workshop. As I mentioned, the work begins actually 2 months prior to your coming here. You submit a certain number of images to us. We then hold Bob and I usually spend about 2 hours per person looking at their work. And then we do a Zoom call and go over the work. We give you our feedback, and then you submit again to us, and with fewer images based on our feedback. Sometimes you change. None of the images on the second submission are related to the first because of our conversations. And then you come to the workshop with about 25 of those images, and then we make decisions together collegially for what your portfolio will look like. And it's really a wonderful process. It's a lot of work, but it's pretty intense, but people end up loving it, and you go home with a complete portfolio boxed and ready to show. And you notice that each print has an overlay on it, a vellum overlay that Bob has sort of I won't say patented, but a wonderful way of reflecting the print underneath it. We also offer an advanced origami workshop, again, limited to 4. That's not true anymore. It's limited to 3 participants. I should have corrected that. I'm sorry. 3 participants. It's a day and a half, and you really learn about Japanese papers, and you go home with actually 2 framed prints, open framed prints. One looks like the one I showed you, that stack you would go home with, and then a print printed on a very, very special paper called Bizan. And it's a completely handmade paper from origami that is so strikingly gorgeous it's you can't put it into words either. It's a textured paper that you have to see to believe. And then in 2025, I make my own one-off handmade books. So I'm hoping by the end of this year, might be into next year, I'll be teaching a workshop on that. But that's going to be a 4-day workshop, so a lot of people won't be able to probably take it, but I'm looking forward to teaching it. Again, the free ebook, if you want, write it down, fineartprintebook.com. And that, I think, is certainly a worthwhile investment. The other thing is, Bob and I have a Substack. It's free. It's paperart.substack.com. It's devoted to printing and display of your prints, exhibition of your prints, or even if it's one framed image in your home, makes no difference. We have a really wonderful people that subscribe to it. It's free, but then there's also a paid section, which is $50 a year. But they have access to various kinds of things, do-it-yourself articles, and so on and so forth. So paperarts.substack.com, you can look at it and see if you like it. But it comes out 5 times a month, and Bob does, and it's a very active community. We have 15,000 subscribers, and people ask questions. Once you take any of our workshops, you're in our family. So if you have a printer problem or something isn't going right, then that's what we're here for. So substack.com is something I think that you'll find worthwhile. Our motto here is at Let's Pick a Fine Art Photography is celebrate and elevate. And we feel printing helps you to do that. Really celebrate your art and elevate it by showing it in print, either in a portfolio or in a wall or something of that sort. So let me ask first if there are any questions, and if not, I'd like to turn on the camera and just show you a couple of things here.
We do have a couple questions.
Say again?
We do have a couple questions. Hang on.
Yes.
Hold on a second. I'm having trouble hearing you. I don't know if you're near a mic or not.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you if you speak into the mic. Go ahead.
Is the goal to have your print come out the way it looks on the screen, if everything's properly calibrated and you're using the proper printer profile? Is that
That's
the
a great
goal?
question. First of all, one of the things that we do at our print workshop is do away with some of the myths that are still on the internet from 20, 30 years ago when printing was an entirely different animal. Printing was really, really difficult in those days to get the color you want, etc. Um, Obviously, you need to calibrate your monitor, but with LEDs, you do not have to do it as often as you see people say on the internet. LEDs are not like cathode rays, ray tubes, and they don't get warmer, and they don't. So it's, but you should calibrate your monitor certainly when you first get it, and then maybe every few months after that. But you can't expect, and this is the biggest problem, you can't expect that your print will look like it does on the monitor. You can get it approximating it, but a print is a different animal. It's a different modality. It is, you know, it's there is a difference, but you want to make sure the colors are right. And we teach that in our workshops, what to look for and how to soft proof. People often, they don't understand how soft proofing really works. We demystify that. We show you using our computers how to soft proof properly to get the results that you're looking for. You have to understand that paper can do things that monitors cannot do. And monitors can show you things that your paper can't do. That is all figured out in soft proofing. So you'll know what to look for and how to rectify it when you actually go to print. But of course, that often depends on knowing, being real familiar with how a print that you liked, how it came out of the printer. That's why we say to practice, and to understand how, the printing process and how soft proofing works. The key thing is, I will tell you that the biggest complaint we get is my prints are too dark. Well, that is simply because your monitor is blasting light through it at a 1200 to 1 1200 to 1 luminosity ratio, and when you go to print, of course it's going to come out dark. What you have to do first and foremost is, when you are post-processing for printing, turn your monitor down 50%. Turn it halfway down. And then you'll have, at least when you go to soft proofing, a better idea of how it's going to look. And it will come out not dark. It'll come out as you see it, closer to as you see it. So we teach a lot of these tips and actually show you them in use, not just tell you about them, but show it how that works. And so it's kind of a fun day, and we get a lot of people going home with a lot of prints, and that makes us happy. Other questions?
Can I ask a second? If your monitor's properly calibrated and you're using the proper paper profile and you still feel like you're getting a color cast, what are some of the troubleshooting things to look at?
Oh, that's a whole other conversation. I'm sorry. I wish I could get into that now. But yes, color casting is a problem. It sometimes can be due to the printer itself. Usually that's not the case, by the way. I'm gonna guess 8 out of 10 times it's the software you're using. There's some issue with the software. Now, I'll give you an example. Every time we teach a workshop, the day before, we're teaching one this Saturday. So tomorrow, we're going to download the latest a copy of Lightroom, and we're going to run prints, because there are numerous incidents, and I mean numerous, that happen to us as well as to other people, where when a new version comes out, it screws up the color balance. It's not your fault. You have to wait a few weeks until that's corrected, and or else you have to revert back to your previous version of the software, and until those problems are ironed out. So I mean, it's a complex issue, but there are ways that you can determine what is causing that color cast. I mean, I wish I could get into it now, but it would be a technical and a long explanation, because it can be many things. And Bob, by the way, I'm going to say pretty much every week, every other week, one of our clients or former workshop attendees will write us an email saying I'm having a problem. We'll usually go on Zoom and then Bob able to pinpoint quite readily what is wrong with it. So yeah, it is frustrating, but there are ways to handle that. Come to our workshop, you'll see.
Could you explain what DMAX is?
Yes, DMAX is simply the ability of a paper to reflect blacks as they're meant to be, so that if a paper has a better DMAX, it means it can render blacks as black as it can possibly be. Whereas if it doesn't have a good DMAX, I'm going to give you an example. Awagami paper, which is a Japanese paper, do not generally, except for a couple, they make several hundred papers, but only 16 are inkjet compatible. So of those 16, we've been, I was the first international ambassador for Awagami. We've been using their papers for about 7 years. So we have become really knowledgeable about how they work. They do not have a high DMAX. That's part of their look, except for 2 or 3 of their of those 16 papers do have a good DMAX, but most of the papers do not. But it's a quality of the paper, and that's the way it is. You have to choose images that don't demand a very, very deep blacks. Does that explain what DMAX is?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you define what's a high DMAX? You look for a number?
Someone is asking if there was a number that defines a high DMAX.
Well, there have been attempts at DMAX numbers, but the critical thing is, number one, the whoever makes the paper, and I know that's true for all the major ones, Hahnemühle and like I said, Kansun, even Red River, Moab, they all tell you in the detail of the paper before you buy it. Go look at the details. It tells you whether it has a high DMAX or not. So that's the best way to do it. No, not the best way. That's one way to do it. The best way is to get a sample of the paper. Get a sample pack from the company. They're usually under $20. Get a sample pack and try it. And with a print, remember, I'm going to go back to this time and again, with a paper that you have printed on and have liked the results with, make sure it's a print that has that calls for real good black, showing blacks real well, and then try it with this other paper. And if it does not, then you know that the DMAX is not where it needs to be for you for that particular image. But it may be just fine for another image. If you're doing a picture of the Serengeti in broad daylight, there's no need to have a high DMAX paper, because it's going to be brown or maybe green during the rainy season. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Can at least try, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try to switch to camera if I can. First of all, I have to get out of, don't I have to get out of share screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, hold on. Let me just do that first. Doesn't seem to be responding. Hold on. Maybe you can help me out here. What am I doing wrong? Whoop. Nope, that's not it. Something's going on here.
There you are.
There you are. We see you.
Oh, you can see me now. Okay,
Yes.
so can I get, I'm not seeing where the camera is. In this thing here. Why am I don't want to do that. Oh, I see. Hold on a second. Maybe it's on here. There it is. Okay. Now we go to camera.
There you go. We see a glasses case on your desk. There you go.
Okay, hang on. Wait, why can't I see? That's the problem. It worked before. Not working. All right. Anyway, can you see this on the wall?
Yes. Japanese man with
Chinese.
Chinese.
Yeah. Can you see the whole thing?
The bottom slightly cut off. There you go.
Okay, so this is a quad tick. You've heard of diptychs, triptychs. This is a quad tick, and it is printed here in the studio on that Unrio paper I talked to you about. Am I too close, or can you see the embedded fibers in it?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, it's really quite an amazing paper. And these embedded fibers are, you can see it here even in the darks, right? So this was taken in China, and it's so it's printed on the 44-inch printer, two sheets, and then cut in half. Each sheet is cut in half. So these two were one sheet, cut in half, and then I mounted it on these sticks, if you will. So that's one thing. Let me just go. I don't want to go too fast because otherwise you're going to get a headache. Can you see the studio now, pretty much?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the studio. This is where we do a lot of our work and so on. We use a light table by GTI so that we know what the color balance is exactly. This is a color balance light booth, so that every print that we do here, we put there to make sure that it's the right, that everything's correct. This is, we do a lot of installations of backlit imagery for offices. But here's what I want to show you is that the Awagami Bazan paper. Can you see the whole thing in here now? I don't know why I can't see it.
You're cutting the top of it off a little bit. There you go.
All right, so this is a Bazan paper, handmade in Japan. Yes, Japanese paper. It's funny, there's a Chinese scene, but it's, but you can see the texture in this paper. It's quite pronounced. But this paper has great Dmax. It's one of the few papers made by Awagami that has really, really good Dmax. And you can see that. Look at the blacks. They render completely black. Even look at the calligraphy here. Can you see that, the calligraphy?
Yes.
All right, so the calligraphy is very, it's very black. Black is black. Whereas some of the others, this paper here, it renders black quite well, but not the way we would particularly like. It's just a little bit off for our use. The wallpaper that you saw, here it is now. So you can see that, and it's a coated paper, so it's very, very tough, and doesn't stain or whatever. And then we have an area here. This is called the black and white animal room, but nonetheless, anyway, that's what we have here. So that's basically it. I'm going to move back to my my monitor here, and back on the table and we'll get off this screen. Any other questions, though?
You've talked a lot about these different types of papers and what it's going to do to the image. So my question to you is, when you pick up a camera and you go to shoot an image, how soon are you thinking about the paper you want to put it on in the process?
Oh, that's an interesting question. That's a good question. When I'm out in the field, it really depends upon, you know, the one I just showed you on the Bazan paper, the one with the tall towers.
Yes.
Yeah. So that one I knew before I left that mountain. I did a book called The Mountains in the Mist. Those are the Tianmen Mountains of China, and they're very misty. I knew that I would need to use, that I want to use an origami paper for it. That was the first thing. And then I knew right then and there that it would be only limited to maybe 2 or 3 of those papers. So I at least I had that in my mind. Other times I go out and the shooting is happening real fast, like in Africa, let's say, or maybe in the Antarctic, or wherever there's a lot of action happening at once. Then I'm too confused and too focused on capturing the image to really be concerned about which specific paper, but I have an idea. I never print on glossy. So that's the first thing. It's not in my repertoire. So I don't do that, but I will use a Baryta paper at times, and I will use, but most of my imagery is on matte paper. Now, you know, having photographed for Geographic, and that's been the whole early part of my career and middle part of my career, I shot color. I mean, you didn't have a choice. I mean, everything was Kodachrome color. But nowadays, I'm shooting probably 80% black and white. So I know in advance that I'm not going to be using probably a very glossy type of Baryta. Even if it's semi-gloss, it's not going to be very glossy. My choices are somewhat limited, but that's based on my vision, and it may not be yours.
Okay.
I've seen by the way, some terrific glossy prints. Like, you know, think of the Albuquerque Balloon Festival. You don't want to shoot that in black and white. So, you know, it's certain images, sure, they'll go great on that. But I know what my limitations are, and I try try to master that. It's a constant battle, but you try.
I have a question about software. The software I'm talking about is Photoshop. When you print in there, are you familiar with that at all?
Okay, we work. My work particularly is on Capture One because I shoot Fujifilm medium format. Excuse me, and they have a relationship with Capture One, so that my files come in as I shot them. But we also are Bob is an expert in Capture One, Lightroom, and Photoshop. I have never used Photoshop, ever. I've never used Photoshop. So I'm not the one to ask, but Bob knows Photoshop back and forth. And but for printing, we don't use it that much, like except for like the wallpaper that had to be done on Photoshop because of the requirement for putting up the wallpaper. That had to be overlapped by 2 inches and then cut down the middle. So it was a complex calculations, and Bob is good at that. So he takes care of that.
Thank you anyway.
Any other questions? John, is there anything on Facebook? No. Okay. I think that's all the questions we have right now.
Well, thank you for listening, and well, if you have any questions, you can always email me.
Can you tell us a bit about where to find, how to sign up for your workshops, and where are they, and pricing?
Yes, if you go to lesterpickerphoto.com, lesterpickerphoto.com, and Christine, I can send that to you if you'd like.
Okay.
At any event, you just go there and you'll see workshops, a banner. If you bring down the hamburger sort of menu, you'll see the workshops that are offered. And we put up new ones as they come onto our schedule. All the workshops are held in Havre de Grace, Maryland, which I'm located. So it's not far from you folks out in the Annapolis area. And so let's see that, yeah, they're all listed. The ones that are available are listed there. Our workshops tend to close out. Certainly the portfolio is usually booked almost a year in advance. So it's this November, and those 4 people have been set. So this November is not available, but 2026 is available. And if you're interested, then you'd probably, we haven't posted it yet. We'll be posting it this summer for 2026. So you might want to look for that. If you can get on our, if you join the Substack, you'll find out about those. If you join the Substack, every so often we put an announcement that there's another workshop. So that would keep you in touch. You could always email me. We'll put you on our list.
Okay, thank you. Just to let you know, we're viewing your desk and whatever's in front of you, not you.
Oh, all right. Well, let me see if I can. Thanks for telling me that. You might want to look at my desk instead of me. That would be smart. Does that make a difference? I am not getting any imagery.
Yeah, we see your chin and a finger. There you go. Now we can see you. Now we can see you.
Okay. You want me to go back to showing you my desk?
No, thank you. I think that's last call for questions. Okay. Thank you for sharing with us, and thank you for your presentation. Send me the information on your website, and I will get that out to the club. And we will see everyone next week for our business meeting, and have a good night.
Thank you so much. Bye.